Let's talk about Alabama's prison system. It is in a deep, deep crisis. We're talking about a level of violence and neglect so extreme that the US government has stepped in and called it unconstitutional. But this isn't just about numbers or old buildings. It's about real people. So today, we're going to dive into the heart of this crisis and really explore what a humane solution could even look like. Just to understand what's at stake here, listen to these words from a man named Thomas. He's been inside for over 30 years. That sentence, it just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? It's about a complete loss of hope in a system that feels like it's only there to punish, not to actually rehabilitate. We're going to come back to his story because it really tells you everything you need to know about this crisis. Okay, so let's get into the official assessment here. And I want to be clear, this isn't just my opinion or some news headline. Back in 2019, the U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, made it official that conditions in Alabama's prisons for men are so horrific, they violate the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution. You know, the one that bans cruel and unusual punishment. And when the DOJ investigated, they didn't just find a few isolated issues. Nope. They uncovered a total systemic failure. The report they put out paints this truly staggering picture of nonstop, unchecked violence, rampant sexual abuse, all of it made worse by a flood of weapons and drugs, and a shocking, shocking lack of staff. The buildings themselves, they're literally crumbling, unsafe, and unsanitary. It's just a perfect storm for disaster. To give you a sense of what that violence actually looks like, check out this chart. It is staggering. Each of these bars shows the number of assaults between inmates in just 1 year that were so bad the victim had to be sent to a hospital. We're not talking about minor fights. These are serious, life-altering injuries. I mean, you're seeing facilities with dozens of these happening. It's just a brutal, dangerous world. So what's driving all this? Well, a huge piece of a puzzle is the insane level of overcrowding. I mean, look at these numbers. They're almost hard to process. Staten Prison is running at 265% of the capacity it was built for. 265%. Bibb and Kilby aren't much better. When you cram that many human beings into a decaying space, tensions just explode, and the whole place becomes impossible to manage. And who's supposed to be managing this powder keg? Well, that's the other side of this crisis. A catastrophic shortage of staff. At Holman Prison, an incredible 77% of correctional officer jobs are empty. 77%. And you can see it's bad across the board. Most prisons are working with half their staff or even less. With that few officers on the ground, it is literally impossible to keep order, stop the violence, or guarantee safety for anyone. And that includes the staff and the inmates. But it's so important that we remember behind all of this data, behind every percentage point, there are individual people. So let's shift from the big systemic picture for a minute and focus on the personal stories, on people trapped inside this mess, people like Thomas, whose words we heard right at the start. So here's Thomas's story. For over 30 years, he has done everything, and I mean everything you could ask of someone trying to earn a second chance. He became a model inmate, he worked hard, he was a leader in faith-based programs. He had just one disciplinary issue, and that was decades ago. But here's the most amazing part. He earned the respect of 19 different correctional officers and staff members who all wrote letters supporting his release. Think about that. The very people paid to guard him were saying, "This man is ready to go home." And yet, this was the result. Parole denied for the 5th time. Even the victim's family wasn't protesting his release anymore. But the board said no and told him to come back in another 5 years. This is where that soul-crushing hopelessness comes from. When the system shows you a path to redemption and you walk it perfectly, but then they keep slamming the door in your face. All right, so the state of Alabama is facing this unconstitutional crisis. What's their main solution? Well, they're building a new, massive prison. And when I say massive, I mean massive in price, too. We're talking about a $1.25 billion project. Let that number sink in. This is for the new Governor Kay Ivey Correctional Complex, and it's on track to be the most expensive prison ever built in the United States. And that brings us to the core of the debate, doesn't it? Supporters will tell you a modern building is desperately needed. But critics are asking a really sharp question. Is this a genuine solution to the crisis, or is it just the world's most expensive Band-Aid? So let's break down the two sides of the argument. The state says, hey, this new place will be safer. It'll have better healthcare, better job training. But the people pushing back say, wait a minute, this doesn't do a thing about the real problems, like the fact that you almost never grant parole. They point out it's a huge payday for contractors, that it's being partly paid for with money diverted from COVID relief in schools, and that one shiny new prison won't fix overcrowding across the whole state.
And these systemic failures, they don't stop at the prison walls. They actually reach right into the homes of families through the technology that's supposed to connect them to their loved ones. But often, it just becomes another form of punishment.
The company that handles communications, iSolutions, is at the center of a storm of complaints. Families talk about calls that constantly drop, video chats that never connect, and they often get charged for these failed attempts. And if they try to get a refund, they describe this nightmare of rude, unhelpful customer service. And because this company has a monopoly, families have nowhere else to turn. They're just stuck. This one complaint to the Better Business Bureau just says it all. Someone put $30 on their account, followed all the rules, jumped through all the hoops, and never even got connected. All they got was a lost connection and lost money. For families trying so hard to hold on to those vital relationships, this broken tech is just a constant source of frustration and heartache. So, if a billion-dollar prison doesn't fix the real issues and the tech is a broken mess, it makes you wonder, what's the alternative? What would a real, humane solution actually be? This is where we need to shift from just talking about the problem to exploring what a real path forward could look like. One that's focused on people, not just on buildings. A real solution would have a few key parts. First, you gotta have meaningful parole reform so that someone like Thomas actually has a fair shot at getting out. Second, you need to seriously invest in rehabilitation programs that work. Third, we need to embrace ideas like restorative justice. And fourth, you have to make sure that technology is used for compassion, to connect families, not to exploit them. Now, you might hear that term, restorative justice, and wonder, what exactly is it? Well, it's a totally different way of looking at crime. Instead of just focusing on punishment, it focuses on repairing the harm that was done. It's about bringing everyone together, the victim, the offender, the community, to try and find a way to heal and move forward. And this isn't just some abstract theory. It happens in the real world. Take the story of Ira and Maureen Morris. After Ira was in prison for 24 years, his wife Maureen helped open a dialogue with the victim's family, and through that process they found a way to reconcile. The family eventually decided they wouldn't oppose his parole anymore. It is an incredibly powerful example of how this can work. And here's the most important takeaway. This is not about being soft on crime. It's about being smart on crime. A more humane system is a more effective system. When we focus on actually rehabilitating people, they're less likely to reoffend. When victims get a voice, they can find healing. And when prisons are safe and run by enough staff, it protects everyone. This kind of approach is better for all of us. Which really leaves us with this one big fundamental question. As the state of Alabama spends over $1 billion on a new prison, we really have to ask ourselves, is the true measure of a society how well it builds its cages? Or is it how well it helps people build lives so they never have to see the inside of one in the first place?